o'clock, so we'll go ahead and call to order the meeting of the Zoning and Adjustment Board, Tuesday, October 11th, 2022. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from July 12th. If anybody has any questions or comments about that.
I have a little, I guess something I want to clarify. On the part of, on 519 East Beach, oops, hold on, sorry about that. On 519 East Beach, where it says we no longer have previous records because of they're cut for a certain period. I was just curious if you know the retention period or if we could find out what it is. I'm not sure.
I think it's only like a year, I believe,
Really?
for a building plan, for the plans themselves. I think permits are a little bit longer, but
So you keep the copy of the paperwork a year, and then it's annually, things get.
that's my understanding. I mean, that's the building department, but that's my understanding is they don't retain, at least residential structures for anything longer than a year.
And that's set by the state through Mississippi Department of Archives and History.
It just kind of caught my eye as to if this were to ever come up again, how we keep paperwork and for how long.
Now, since we're going to more electronic things, I think they will have a longer retention plan, retention time. At least if it's something that affects a variance or something from the planning commission, they'll have a longer retention time simply because will be electronic.
All right, any other comments, or would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from June 14, 2022.
All right, a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor? Say aye. All right, no opposed. Motion passes to approve the minutes. Next item on the agenda is old business, and we have none. So we will move on to new business. The first item on the agenda is listed as an appeal, lots 14, 16 through 20. Bills Avenue replat, Little Bluff LLC, appealing the UDC's requirements for the minimum building side yard setback distance. And Wade, if you'll introduce the request.
Certainly. She said this is for the Bills Avenue subdivision, which is in the RD two-family residential district. The lots in question are identified in red on the front page. Could you go? Back in. I'll go ahead. They are shown in your report and the circled in red on the vicinity map. See, it's all on the west side of Bills Avenue. Yeah, thank you. And what is proposed here is the applicant proposes a 5-foot side yard setback distance on the north side of each of the 6 lots. They note that the affected lots are narrow, and the purpose of this 5-foot side yard is, in other words, to enable adequate access to the backyard and have room for mature trees to be incorporated into the landscape. You see the site, pull down to that site plan a little bit. This is the tentative site plan for each one of the lots. It shows you see the 5-foot setback is there on the right side of the screen, and on the schematic, the driveway is proposed to be on the left side, basically the south side of the lot, so that you would afford in all cases, more than a 10-foot separation between the buildings of these lots, at least. Now, in this situation, now the UDC permits the Zoning Adjustment Board a maximum variance of 25%. In this case, the RD district has a standard 10-foot side yard setback, so the maximum that's permitted by a variance is a 7.5-foot side setback. Anything greater than that would involve an appeal of the UDC requirement to the Board of Aldermen. But it does come to you, the requirement is that it comes to y'all first for a recommendation, and then presented to the Board of Aldermen for a final decision. Just would point out that these 6 lots on which the 5-foot side setback is proposed are slightly narrower than the others in the Bills Avenue subdivision. These are all between like 77.9 to 78 feet, whereas the other lots are typically 80 feet in width. So there's a slight amount of variance, difference there. That concludes the presentation on it. There's a proposed motion at the bottom of the page 3, and I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have about this. Oh, and also we do have Kelly and Jimmy Lane, if you want to add anything from them.
Okay. First thing I'll just kind of add is so this is RD, and the minimum width for an RD property is 70 feet.
Correct.
Okay. So all of the existing lots are greater in width than what is the minimum required for RD lots. Something else I want to add in is we have two letters that were provided to us in our packet that were received on this request, and if we want to consider those, we need to make a motion to add those to the minutes. Anybody would like to?
Make a motion to take them into consideration.
Okay, got a motion and a second.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. No opposed. So these are added to the minutes. So just want to go ahead and get that out of the way, and we can begin discussion.
They're both the same as far as the
So there are
25%.
There are 2 for this item, and then 2 others for a later agenda item.
I think there was 3 for the second.
Okay.
We gotta wait.
So yeah, 3 for the second. Sorry.
So Wade, my
Yes.
first question, I know what used to be on bills. The plat that we're looking at now, is that using the lot lines that were already in place, or are these a shift in all the lot lines?
I'm not totally positive on that. My recollection is that the lot lines are basically the same. I think the replat of subdivision changed some of the front lot lines, I believe. I don't. Would be more of a question for the Lane.
Did you want to go to the?
And if I remember correctly, Wade, I think it's lots 1 and whatever the last one is, 22, those 2 at the north end, that had maybe a little different lot line configuration, and the remaining are the same.
Just state your name and your address, please.
My name is Jimmy Lane, 16300 Old Kelly Road, Vancouver, Mississippi. Okay, the original plat, Bills Avenue had 30 lots. We currently have 23. So they did shift somewhat. Now, it's kind of a parallax of how they shifted, because some on the east side are actually 93-foot wide. But we were dealing with utilities and drainage easements and such as that, but we had to create a larger lot for the footprint, primarily because our goal was specifically to do rear parking. And
You need extra space to
we
turn
just
it
had
in.
to have it, we couldn't do anything different. We'd like to have more lots, but at the same time, we want to sell the character neighborhood as well. So that's your lot shift and the purpose of that.
So with regard to the, I guess it was facts like Joanna Severin. Hopefully that's close. Well, anyway, the topic or the conversation is with regard to an extraordinary hardship. And so maybe that can be explained. What is this extraordinary hardship? Or what is the, go ahead.
I don't understand the question.
Like, the reason you're asking for the setback,
Okay.
is it
Okay.
a financial reason, is it?
No, scroll down to the site plan, if you will.
This one?
All right, as you can see, most of these houses you're going to have to do, we're kind of tied to the depth. That's why we have the 15-foot front yard setback, because we're placing the parking in the rear of all lots. And what happens when you're trying to get a square footage, we're trying to do a few things. We're trying to get square footage on single floor in instances, because a lot of people are going to want these lots and these places are going to be more for permanent end-of-life homes and so forth. But we don't want to be going up so much as we want to stay on a single floor. And when you do that, as you see, you're going to get into configuration. A lot of the plans, and we've looked at plenty, you're going to have bump outs like this one does at the rear. Now, if you're driving down the street front, as you can see, the front of the house, the majority of the house is going to have a greater than 10-foot separation from the lot line, as you can see on the right side. But as it goes back, a lot of them are going to bump out, and that's where the 5-foot comes in. And primarily our purpose for that is to put the landscaping and the aesthetics of the home where it counts. In other words, if we shift it on over, if you take a point to the right of the driveway between the house and the porch, for example, you move that 5 foot and you keep your driveway a reasonable distance from the property line, or which will be a fence, then you narrow your space. And when you do that, you can put an azalea there and you can put a crepe myrtle, but you can't put an oak tree or a cypress or a sycamore, because 15 years from now, it just don't accommodate. And as far as, and I don't know what our concerns are here, and I know safety is one of them. Every lot has the driveway determined. In other words, there would be no lot that would back up with a 5-foot side yard setback. And I must mention while I'm saying this, not all will fall into this. You know, many of them will probably remain 10, but we need the variation to achieve our goal in this aspect. But, you know, as far as fire protection and access to the back properties and so forth, every one of them is going to have a driveway to the back. Most of your homes in subdivisions have a front-loaded driveway and a 10-foot side yard setback. The 10-foot is so you could get something in a dire emergency to the rear. In this case, you're going to drive down the driveway. And if that driveway don't work, and I know the fire department, how they work, they'll go down the adjacent driveway. All they want to do is get to the back where the emergency is. So the 5 foot, your houses are still going to remain 25, 30 foot apart at the very least. If you can imagine, because we already have determined the driveway.
And the width of your driveway is 10?
10.
So you've got 22 feet 8 inches of green buffer.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got, I don't know what it's calling for there, probably 2.5 or 3 foot from the fence. But it just makes it more aesthetically pleasing. That if you shift that house to the center of the thing, and you're squeezing your driveway up against your fence, and you just got less area to do any kind of, and particularly in my case, it's mature growing trees. Because as you've seen, Bill's Avenue was covered with trees, most of them water oak, of course. But, you know, we don't need to plan for 6 months from now. I mean, I want to plant something that will grow for the future. i.e. live oaks or whatever, but you can't put them in a 15-foot space. If you do, you just create havoc down the road.
So is a 5-foot setback from the north and the south, or both?
The south.
From the south side,
No, it's
from the
the
north
north.
side, I'm sorry,
North.
on the right side there, you see the bump out
Mhm.
on the plans? See, it's gonna bump out 6 or 7 feet or whatever, and most of the plans you're gonna find are gonna have that. They have to get wider in the back to accommodate the amenities of the house. And we're dealing with a depth situation. I mean, you can't do a house longer because we're trying to put the parking in the rear. So we're fighting for square footage in the home on a single floor. Not to say there won't be 2 stories, but if you can understand the concept, we're trying to reach a goal here where we appease the customer and the city.
Does a driveway have to be 10 feet from the line as well? Is that the-
No,
There's a
no,
5
it
foot
could,
buffer
it
line.
could, I mean, it could actually be right next to the
Okay.
property line,
So I
but
consider the,
I don't think
I got you.
I wouldn't want my wife driving down that right side driveway. She kind of intimidating.
So I have a question with regard, you said at the front, you want to have the capacity or the room to put in oak trees and stuff like that?
Well, a maturing tree, a tree that's gonna grow to stature over time.
You know,
It could
in
be
a 5-foot area?
No, between the drive, he's talking about
No.
the green space between the drive and the house.
Yeah. Let me show you.
There with that.
The area I'm fighting for is right
I
here.
wouldn't plant it that close to the house.
Is this right in here? In other words, if I move that house over here, then I got an area right in here. And you just can't, in good conscience, plant them. I've done it before, and believe it or not, live oaks and all of them grow a lot quicker than you think. And, I mean, it's just an amenity that I think the subdivision needs, plus it fits the bill for us. It gives you a whole lot better appearance as you go down the street. I mean, these houses are built closer to the street. We've got a 6-foot sidewalk that we put on the lot easement so that we would build this character. Every house on Mills Avenue has got to have a 10-foot deep porch on it. I mean, we're chasing something here that, we hope will flow forward. And I do realize that y'all are limited to how much you can give me, but I'd certainly like to go to the alderman with y'all's blessings on this.
So just speaking back to that letter where it talks about extraordinary hardship, on the application, it talks about justification for request, and it says, on there, justification must include, exceptional narrowness, shallowness, and shape of a specific piece of property, exceptional, topographical conditions, or other extraordinary situation or condition for a specific piece of property. And I guess this one's a little different since we've got several lots listed and not just one we're looking at. But all of these essentially relate to existing conditions of this property that are forcing this situation. Now this, 5 feet setback on the north side of this property, you could shift it 2.5 feet to the south, request a, 25% variance in front of this board. And then, we can make a ruling that way. But, I think, the existing, you've got 5 feet, so you've got, 22.5 between the driveway and the house that is proposed. You could shift that 5 feet, or even to get to where no setback, no variances were, required, or even 2.5 feet. that gets 20 feet between the driveway and the house. And so that's just kind of what that was talking about, is that what hardship, and that's why I wanted to say, hey, this is 77, the smallest one, 77 feet wide. Minimum lot requirement is 70, so they're already 7 feet wider than what is a traditional Hardy district.
That's kind of what I'm thinking, because it conforms to the current UDC in size. It's a little bit larger than the current.
Right, I understand the zoning and what it's called for, but, and let's say, we're not trying to build duplexes here.
Oh, yeah.
We're trying to build something a little different. And, the street remained 20 foot wide for a reason. I put a 6 foot easement on the front of the properties for a reason, and I know you have your criteria that you're supposed to meet and so forth like that. But, we don't want parking in the front. We don't want front loading carports. We want, this is a little different animal. I'll agree. How you get there, I don't know. We've tried very hard the last 3 years to do it. Had a great investment, I might add. So, we're pretty steadfast in what we're trying to achieve here. I appreciate the board and their concerns and where they're at, but logically speaking, you can't give me the 5 foot anyway. So I guess really what I'm doing here is asking you, do you have a problem with me going before the council and getting it? Because I just feel like it's what we need.
Am I ready to vote?
I think so. Is anybody, anything else from Mr. Lane?
As far as, on that question of our responsibility with the zoning board, so we're recommending, obviously, to the aldermen, they can do whatever they want to with our recommendations.
Correct. Exactly.
It's not a confrontational.
Yeah, I know.
I think y'all understand where we at. I think you got the concept and understand what we're trying to do. We just need as much leeway as we can to get there.
All right, one more thing I guess we need to do, if nobody has anything else from Mr. Lane. No. Anybody else want to speak for or against? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you would state your name and address, please.
I think y'all pretty well talked about some of this stuff, which I was glad to hear.
Do you have an extra copy?
I can give you mine when I'm finished.
Or, yes,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a couple printouts from the UDC on variances. And I'm not here because of this gentleman.
Name and address.
Oh,
please.
sorry, Julia Lawn, 303 Front Beach. Anyway, I'm not here. I've in the past have seen like 100% variance approved in this board. Maybe not all of you are on it. So I just wanted to point out some things from the UDC. And if you look at, actually, I think I gave one to you, my copy thing.
The highlighted?
You know, one that's kind of torn. Okay, well, anyway, so zoning and adjustment board, the responsibilities, the powers relative to variances D. The ZAC shall have the right by majority vote to decrease any minimum requirement and to increase any maximum requirement, except for the required minimum lot area in residential zoning districts by not more than 25%. and shall be allowed for only for good and substantial reasons, which shall be made part of the record. And then if you go to the next page, it talks about the applicability. And then if you go down under initiation, it says, let's see, last sentence, the application shall demonstrate the existing conditions and circumstances are such that the strict application of the provisions, the UDC provisions, would deprive the applicant of reasonable use of said land, building, structure, equivalent to the use made of lands, buildings, and structures in the same district and permitted under the terms of this provision, and that the peculiar condition and circumstances are not the result of the actions of the applicant. And again, this has nothing to do with your development. This is something I have looked at and listened to for a long time. And so I just want to give you an opportunity to come say what I had to say. Anyway, and as Joanna had sent y'all, the variances are only to be issued when there is a showing of good and sufficient cause, and, it says the word and, a determination that failure to grant the variance would result in exceptional hardship. So that's all I had to say. But I am a little confused. So this lot is RD is 70 wide, and these are narrow.
The minimum width is 70, they're wider than that.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'd like
to speak. Okay. State your name.
My name is Beth Ann Dressel, 406 Martin Avenue, and I moved here about 2.5 years ago by choice, loving the state and loving the area. One of the things that I'm very, very concerned about, having come from Colorado and having sat actually in my Steamboat Springs home area in y'all's seats in the past, is the matter of public safety. As everybody knows, in Colorado, there was a very tragic, horrible fire in Boulder County where houses were basically 10 feet apart. So I just wanted you all to consider the density of putting in very dense urban developments when you consider all of these things. Thank you.
Hey y'all, 512 Dewey Avenue. My name is Kelly Lane. I'm not going to elaborate. I think my dad was pretty clear. What we're hoping for is to find a path to present it to the aldermen. Not certainly trying not to bypass you guys, but prior to obtaining this deal, we did do our due diligence and we approached the city. We worked with the city, and the concerns were off-street parking as well as trees. We worked hard to save what we could, but as he mentioned, majority were water oaks. We saved several live oaks. I'm not sure that we had to take any down. But the whole point is that we're trying to create something a little bit different. It is unique. And so in order to give it the appeal that we initially approached the city, to give it the aesthetics rather that we approached the city with, rear parking is required. However, it's bare. We need to put some sort of landscape. And I'm a realtor, not that that really makes a hill of beans, but I talk to prospective buyers and they want to know what they can put on these lots. And so we're looking at obtaining this blanket variance for 6 out of 23. And our plans are not to maximize the footprint like you see everywhere downtown. We're trying to create something really unique and aesthetically pleasing moving forward for our city. And so that's our intentions. I just wanted to remind you guys that we've been working with the city prior to obtaining this, and we're committed to continuing that, and we'd like the opportunity. Once again, we just need the path to get there. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Anyone else? All right. Any further discussion? Would anyone like to make a motion?
to make a recommendation. Recommend to not approve of the requested appeal of Bills Avenue replat of lots 2 through 31 and the south 5 foot of lot 32 subdivision to allow a 5 foot building setback from the south property lines of lots 14, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20 is described in the application. Due to no demonstration of exceptional issues with lot narrowness or extraordinary hardship.
All right, so motion on the floor to deny the requested appeal. Do I have a second?
One second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify with an aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The proposed motion that was approved is to recommend denial of the requested appeal. As you mentioned, this will be on the Board of Aldermen next Tuesday.
So if you wish to officially appeal that, just send me. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda, new business B has been withdrawn. So we'll move on to new business C, which is 1515 Government Street, OHOS Development LLC requesting a front yard setback variance, a dumpster enclosure setback variance, and a drive aisle width variance. And Wade, if you'll introduce
Sure.
the request.
Okay. This property, it says 1515 Government, formerly the Swingster property, Swingster Development, which was demolished and rezoned from its industrial zoning district to the current CMX2 district in 2016. So it's currently undeveloped. Also, in addition to being in the CMX2 district, it's also in the downtown overlay district as part of the Government Street sub-area, which does give it some additional setback provisions and other street appearance issues are at work in there. Just point out to you that it is a downtown mixed-use area. As you can see from that map at the inset, you have industrial zoning and Ocean Springs Lumber Yard to the east, RD zoning and single-family dwellings across General Pershing to the west, and then CMX1 and other commercial zoning across Government Street to the south. As you mentioned, there are 3 variances being requested here. First is they are proposing a 12-foot building setback along Government Street and a 7-foot building setback along the section of General Pershing Avenue adjacent to the parking garage. 0 to 5 feet setbacks are permitted in this downtown overlay district. In their case, they note that the 12-foot setback from Government Street is proposed to maintain an appropriate distance from the upper floor balconies and the existing overhead power lines along Government Street. The purpose of the 7-foot setback from General Pershing is to enable vehicle access into the parking garage. The next variance is to be able to locate the dumpster enclosure 44 3/4 feet from the nearest residential property. The minimum requirement in the UDC is a minimum separation of 50 feet for a dumpster for businesses serving food. If it were a just conventional dumpster, there would be a minimum distance of 30 feet. So the additional 20 feet is because of the fact that the is serving a food service establishment. Final variance is regarding the drive aisles within the parking garage. They are proposed to be 20 feet, whereas the minimum requirement of the UDC blanket for either any type of parking lot aisle, drive aisle is 24 feet minimum, whether or not it's a surface lot or a parking garage. The applicant's engineers have done the research, and they've concluded that the 22 feet is like an industry standard for design of parking garages, National Parking Garage Design Standard.
Is that true?
think, I think
So
they can
I-
address that.
Personally, I've never designed a parking garage, but I did do a little bit of research, and it seems like that is the standard. Yeah, that is typically what is precast and made, readily available, and that is for 90-degree head-in parking.
Would that be in, must have been ahead of myself. Should we talk about that now or later?
I'm almost saying, let me go ahead and wrap this up. Just want to make reference to, there's some emails that have been received regarding this. I think Amanda's passed those out to you. Just want to conclude with that, this is a true mixed-use development because it's a mixture of hotel, retail, parking garage, and condominium. Typically, in a situation like that, it's not unusual that there are variances to the standard development requirements in order to accommodate existing streets, infrastructure, utilities, and such as that. So the motion then below has 4 items to it, all to address the specific variances requested here. So yeah, I'd be glad to answer any questions you've got of that, or we've got folks from Mashana Patana here that may want to go into more details or answer your questions also.
Is there any discussion? Thanks, Wade. Any discussion we want to do before we ask them to come up?
I think Michael was getting into the,
Yeah, I don't know if that, let them, you could go ahead and let them, let them, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you can go ahead and let them talk first, and
Okay.
maybe we'll learn about it.
State your name, address for the record, please. Oh, before we get into that, I do want to also say we've got 3 letters that we received sent to Amanda. So we want to make those part of the record, part of the minutes. We can make a motion.
make a motion to include the 3 emails for this project.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Included in the minutes. Go ahead.
Hey, my name's Jack Schmidt with MP Design Group at 918 Howard Avenue in Biloxi. I guess I'll start off by just kind of telling you all a little bit about this project. So you can kind of understand totally what we're asking for. Currently, it's 1 parcel. We have an application that will be before the Planning Commission tonight to split the property into 3 parcels. The first parcel on the corner of Government and Ward Avenue will be a hotel, a 32-room hotel. As we move to the west, parcel 2 will really be the big mixed-use component. It'll contain a food hall, essentially like a cafeteria-type building that different food vendors can come in and cook. We'll have 8 condo units directly above that, and then we'll also on that parcel have 8 retailer commercial units and then 4 condo units above that. And then to the north, kind of bound between the first 2 parcels and then General Pershing and Ward, we'll have a 220 space parking garage. This parking garage will facilitate parking for the buildings that we're constructing as well as public parking for the city. Happy to answer any questions about the specific variance requests we have.
Thank you. Anybody have any specific questions?
Only one on the, going down to 22 feet for the alleys or whatever you want to call them. That's 2-way traffic. The whole thing would be like 11 feet, presumably,
Correct. Yes. And we're
each lane.
correct, and we're working with the national group called Walker Consultants on the parking garage. They've designed that, and so that's where we got the feedback that 22 feet is pretty standard for a parking garage nationally, and it allows us to really maximize the amount of parking we provide.
And how many stories is the parking garage?
Parking garage is 3 stories.
And will the rest of it be, or is any of that more than 3? The hotel or
The hotel's 3 stories, and then the buildings on parcel 2, it's really, you can almost look at them as 2 buildings. It's really 1 building, but one will be 2 stories and the other will be 3.
So it'll be shielded from the 2 parcel buildings in the front, the parking garage
Correct.
mostly?
Correct. I can also talk a little bit about each variance we have. So the first one would be the front yard setbacks along Government. Because we are in the downtown overlay district, the code requires us to be within 5 feet of the property line. There's a couple of challenges to us there. One being that on both the intersections of Ward and General Pershing, we have OS Lumber to the north of us. And, so we have pretty large delivery trucks that are making that turn off Government heading north. And really to avoid any public safety concerns, it's really a challenge for those trucks to make those turns. So we want to make sure the buildings are protected and pedestrians as well are protected from those turns. We also have the power lines along Government Street that provide some challenges with the balconies that were proposed on our buildings. So we want to make sure that we have adequate clearance in those balconies and those power lines, especially in things like Mardi Gras and stuff like that. It's also because of the capacity of these buildings and the events they may possibly have. We kind of anticipate times where there could be a lot of people coming in and out at once, and certainly want to keep from having people spill into the street with traffic coming. We will probably have some outdoor seating, particularly at the food hall area. So I think that we're really in the spirit of the code with making those buildings close to the street and kind of all flowing together. But we feel like, based on those reasons, we really need extra space there. Our other front setback request is on Ward for the parking garage.
One quick question. So the 12 feet front yard setback off of Government, is that measured to the ground floor or the balcony?
To the ground floor.
Okay. And so what would the balcony overhang be?
So that's approximately 6 feet.
Okay.
So,
And you will have a green buffer or what in between the building and Government underneath the balcony?
currently no, because of the, we don't anticipate planting any street trees directly along that curb line because of the overhead power lines. Of course, we will have a landscaping plan and have some tree wells and things like that in that area.
So it would be clear that there would be no space to park between front of that building and Government Street, right?
Well, there is street parking there now.
No, I'm talking about on the property, like,
Oh, yeah, there will.
if you get the setback, you've got 12 feet there, no car would ever be put in that spot, right?
No, we have, the existing curb and gutter will stay, and there is striped parking adjacent to the street there, so, I mean, that wouldn't be an issue. Sure, I'm sort of just get on the list here. The other front yard setback is for our parking garage. The front of that structure will face Ward Avenue, and because of the narrow right-of-way width right there, the narrow street, we really feel like we need 2 extra feet to get people safely in and out of that parking garage. We certainly would have some concerns with having the entrance of that parking garage in the facade of that parking garage right on top of the property line there, with people turning in and out on a particularly narrow road.
The narrow road you're speaking of is General Pershing.
General Pershing, correct.
So is there enough space for a dump truck to even get in there to?
Sure, yeah, we can do that. So we consulted with Waste Management. Currently, what we have planned is to have the dumpsters configured, rotated approximately 45 degrees towards the road. And in that area, we'll have kind of a concrete drop apron where the dump truck can come in and pick those dumpsters up, without too much issue. As far as the dumpster setback request, again, depending with the right-of-way that's less than 35 feet. So I mean, measured from our property line to the adjacent residential property. So we made all efforts to kind of space that dumpster as far away as possible, and dealing with some challenges there.
So why was there not a consideration if you've got commercial on the Ward side to have that be your entrance? Because if I'm wrong, somebody correct me, traffic for OS Lumber can sometimes come and go on both Pershing and Ward.
Correct.
So what was your thought on
As
putting
far-
it on the residential side versus the commercial?
As far as the dumpster enclosure,
And the entrance too of your garage, like just.
well, the entrance to the garage is on General Pershing, and that parcel actually spans, and we have some surface parking for the hotel. So, we have the surface parking that will accommodate the hotel that is on the corner of Ward and Government. And so, kind of saving that for them, and then for the dumpsters, because this will be 3 separate parcels, we have to have a dumpster dedicated to that parcel with the mixed-use buildings. We will have a dumpster on the Ward side, but we also have to have one on General Pershing as well.
And what was that reason again?
Yeah.
Why you have to have it on both?
Because we have, for the because they're 2 separate parcels. So,
Each parcel has to have.
correct. If one day the ownership of one parcel changes, then the other one is left without a dumpster.
The dumpster itself on the General Pershing side, is that, I know it's within the, less than 50 feet, as you said, but is it gonna be, I guess, landscaped or covered where you can't even see?
Sure, yeah. It'll be totally enclosed on 3 sides and have a roof over it, so it'll be pretty well hidden from.
Go ahead to the last one. Or did you already?
Job
You
all
kinda
with?
touched
Number
on
four.
that, but you can.
Yeah, sure. I can just kind of reiterate that. And working with this group of Walker Consultants, we learned that the national standard for drive-out widths of parking garages is 22 feet. Our surface parking will have the required 24-foot drive-out width, but just in an effort for construction reasons and to maximize parking, requesting that variance as well.
So, on the drive aisles, the UDC has 24 feet, is that?
Correct.
You know where that comes from? Is that comes from the building code that Ocean Springs?
That's a general standard, pretty much more or less nationwide, from one zoning ordinance to another, as the minimum width for a two-way drive aisle is 24 feet. That's kind of been a standard for a number of years to allow two-way traffic movement.
Maybe you understand a little better on as far as design aspects of what Ocean Springs, the city, like the city engineering,
Minimum standards.
what would they or should they use?
So
It's
in
more
this,
of a design issue than a
yeah, so
zoning issue, I think, so.
well, right, but in the city's UDC, they have kind of a standard for off-site parking, and not only how many spaces you shall have, but what the dimensions and not only the spaces but also the drive aisles, and so that is in the city's UDC as design guidelines, minimum standards that I guess the city and with the help of the consultant, that whoever put together the UDC went through and said, this is what we want in Ocean Springs. If you go along the coast, it varies very little. I think City of Gulfport's 25, but I mean, they're all, relatively close.
Yeah, I will note that, Ocean Springs, as does most municipalities, doesn't have really demarcated off-street parking from a parking garage. So we're certainly willing and able to provide the minimum required drive aisle and the surface parking that we're providing. But I feel this is a little bit different. It's consistent with other parking garages that are constructed around. And again, it really helps us kind of get as many spaces as we can in downtown Ocean Springs.
So You mentioned earlier you're going to the planning commission tonight.
Correct.
You're asking to have this divided into 3 parcels.
Correct.
That could have lead to one day 3 different owners. So are each of these parcels meeting their parking requirement, or will they be short if one day somebody buys the hotel and some of the spots for the hotel are in the garage?
Sure. I think that the approach we're taking to that is we would, as we submit the final plat, we would include an easement that kind of perpetually mandates that the spots required for each parcel is provided in the parking garage.
Like a co-op kind of
Sure, yeah.
situation?
And I believe the parking garage will actually ultimately be leased, long-term leased by the city.
Your lease, the city would lease?
That is kind of,
Correct.
it's been some of the discussion exactly that the city would have access or, use of the certain number of the spaces in the parking garage. And they would also be for use for all the establishments on this development.
Special events, things like that.
Possible, yes.
What is the total number of parking spaces?
I think it's at 225, isn't it?
225,
It's,
of which you intend to use.
222 in the garage, and we have some surface parking as well. I don't have that number offhand, but I know the
Close counts.
sure, yeah. The required is, I believe it's around 160, but then there's also a 50% reduction for CMX2, so we well exceed the number of spots required. Correct.
And so what are your plans to mitigate runoff? Because it sounds like a lot of concrete and
Well, I'll head that off slightly.
Do
This is not I want to keep, us focused on the variances
But we have to
and
consider.
not the design. I guess once you start getting into, and I know just where some of the letters talk about, the existing roadway and drainage and things like that. And so those items are generally addressed during the design review period.
Right, this will
Correct.
still have to go through our
Yeah.
administrative design review, where we'll look at the drainage calculations, drainage studies,
all
what
that
the
will still be-
runoff will be from it, how it's going to be accommodated. So yes, that's all something that will be looked at as part of the design review and building permit also.
Good.
There's a lot more to it. This is just getting it started.
Yeah. Step 1. So sorry to
No,
jump in
just-
like that. I just wanted to make sure that,
Getting an answer to some
Yeah.
concerns so
Yeah.
that somebody that might be watching this can see it's going to be addressed
Oh, yes.
in the process.
Yes, correct. All right, anything else? Anybody? Questions for the applicant? All right, if anything else comes up, we'll ask you to step on up.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, is there anyone else to speak for or against this request?
Yeah.
Okay. Please step up to the microphone, state your name and address, please. And I know we kind of talked through several proposed motions, so if you are here to speak against one or all, say, hey, I'm here against this one, please.
First of all, I'm Webster Woods. I own some property on the road, on the corner of Government and Persian. My concern are traffic. As already we know, the traffic that oftentimes comes as a result of OS lumber, 18-wheelers and what have you. And because it's residential, that really concerns me in terms of safety. The garbage container, even if it's enclosed. When I think about all the richness of what Ocean Springs bring and all the activity and what's been going on, excuse me, over the last 30 plus years or so, and being that family friendly kind of city you want to come to, I think about that garbage sitting there. Now, you say it's enclosed, but you can't contain the smell. People passing by, they'll be subjected to that odor. And the streets are crowded. We just cruised the coast for a little while here, and activity throughout the area, and the nightlife is great. But all that considered, is that an ideal place? How can you decorate a garbage enclosed container to make it look aesthetically good right there on that corner? It kind of detracts away from what you're trying to do up and down Government Street. To me, it does. The in and out traffic, specifically if you're talking about Pershing continuing to be a two-way street, that's going to be crazy, really crazy, because now if you don't have a stop sign, a four-way stop at that intersection, that's going to be a nightmare, unless we put our police force out there to kind of direct traffic when we have all of these big events. There's going to be a lot of flow in and out, cars going in and out throughout the course of the evening, night, etc. The initial plans, I think I looked at a study that indicated a study was conducted and the parking garage was on the northeast side, and now it's kind of flipped to the northwest side based on location. I don't understand why. I'm thinking that the study probably captured the fact that this is residential. We probably shouldn't do it that way. But listening in, if I'm misunderstanding what's going on here, let me know. I think that's just going to be a headache to deal with all of that going on. I think we do need parking real bad, real bad. But if we can facilitate it being there, but the egress and exit would be on the opposite side, I think that would be better, especially for the residents of Pershing.
So you're saying if, let's just make this up,
Yeah.
Ward was one way going north of Government, and then you came down south Pershing to get out the garage, is that what you're kind of?
Two-way traffic is going to be a headache.
Mhm.
Most people come off of Government Street and they turn down Pershing. Even if the garage is there, I don't care for the entrance and exit to be there.
In the same street.
Yeah, on the same street.
So that's what you're saying,
Yeah.
one could be one direction.
Because it's just going to create a nightmare. Now, honestly, I don't want it on that side of the street at all because it's residential. If it was on Ward, it would be much better, but I understand that kind of interferes with the plans. But it's about doing what's good for the patrons that live here, especially on Pershing. Got a lot of things going on Pershing. Good houses, updated a lot of houses on the road there. And that's going to seriously affect the residents of that area. And I just don't see how the traffic will flow safely to get people in and out. And I'm sure you guys are going to consider all that when you get deeper into your planning to kind of see how is that going to impact your traffic patterns, which I think will be very complicated.
All right, thank you. And yes, you're, the concern that you brought up with the traffic, that is something that, the city and the engineers will, kind of work together and evaluate. But that's, not one of the things we determined here today.
Right.
You just wanted to say that. So,
Yeah.
Anybody else speak against? If you'll state your, yes, ma'am. If you'll state your name and address for the record, please.
Lottie Gibson. The address is 821 General Pershing. Can you?
Yes.
Okay. My concern also is my mom, she walks down that street sometimes 2-3 times a day. And also she has grandkids that, be out there. And I'm in agreement with the smell. and the garbage and everything, that's a residential side. That's not a commercial side. That's for, you got houses down there. You have people that's been down. My mom been there ever since, I don't know how long. My mom is 91 years old. And she walks down that street all the time. And her grandkids and everything. How they gonna do that and be safe? You know, you have to think about it. Would you want that? It's just simple. You know, we've been here all our life, and we try to live in peace as a community, you know, and y'all should take that in consideration, that her grandkids, great-great-grandkids come and visit, and to help elderly people that's down that street, and the site, just like she said, the garbage, I don't even know how to smell, how you can contain the smell. Because I've been downtown and behind the place, and I don't see how you can contain that smell. If it was on the other side, I said, well, you know, at least it's commercial. But that's a residential side over there. That's not commercial over there. That's a residential. We have houses down there. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else to speak on this request? All right, so I'll open it up for discussions amongst us. And I don't know, do we just want to discuss all of them,
Well,
then
that was
go,
the
or do
first
one at a time?
Discussion, are we
Let's
gonna
do-
vote
let's do one at a
independently
time.
of the four?
Yes, so each
And
one
we'll
will
go
be
as a
its
whole.
own motion,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Then I only have one question on number three.
Okay, so,
Not
all
even
right.
a question, but.
All right, so number one, the first request is a 12-foot building setback along Government Street. And so Wade, if I remember correctly, you know, the reason this is applying is because it's in the downtown overlay district. The original zoning table had a minimum and maximum as well, correct?
Correct.
And the maximum was done away with.
That's correct. Maximum is done
Okay.
away with. Yes, that is the minimum.
For CMX2, or really everything. So
Correct.
original had this same requirement, but it was done away with. Now, is the reason, was it discussed, the downtown overlay district, hey, it does definitely need to stay a maximum, or
That was
that
the idea.
just kind of, you know,
Yeah,
overlooked?
No, I think the idea is that, at least in Government Street, that the desire was to bring things close to the street, to duplicate the appearance of Government Street in the Washington Avenue area. You know, that kind of pattern that's been existing for a number of years between Washington, say, to Blandie, to carry that eastward as new development happens, rather than to have large, more traditional suburban type appearance with the deep setbacks, bring it all up to the street, put parking in the rear. That was the desire to make it 0 to 5 feet.
Okay, thank you.
In this case, they have a situation also of overhead power lines.
Correct,
So
yeah.
it's a little bit different situation here.
All right. Any discussion on item one? Or someone like to make a motion?
Lonnie
Oh,
Gibson.
yes, ma'am.
I'm in agreement with that. I feel like it should be on the other side, on the east side, instead of over there on the Persian side. And I walks down and I have to try to get over on the side of the road, and I can't hardly get over because I be walking on the upright walker. But I still have to try to get out the way. And if I try too fast, I might go over in that ditch. So really, I'm in agreement with what my daughter had said. I feel that's the best for that area.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so item number one, any further discussion, or would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the 12-foot building setback along Government Street for the development at 1515 Government.
due to the.
Oh, gotcha. Due to the hardship of power lines in the way as well as balconies that will front the building.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor to approve the 12-foot building setback along Government Street. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right. Item number 2, a 7-foot building setback along this section of General Pershing Avenue adjacent to the parking garage on proposed parcel 3. So this falls, same thing, the requirement is to be 0 to 5, and this is, 2 feet further than that.
I'll make a motion to approve the 7-foot setback along the section of Pershing Avenue adjacent to the parking garage for parcel 3. What's my reason? Is this the same reason? Was it
That one dealt with the location of the parking garage.
Yeah.
to make
Last sentence of the first description of the question.
Got you. 7-foot setback from General Pershing is to enable vehicle access into the parking garage.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Motion and a second. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, motion number 3 is to allow the dumpster enclosure to be 44.75 feet from the nearest residential property. Is that- Well, the requirement is 50. Correct. Because there will be a dining hall component to the structure. All right. Any discussion on this item?
We've concluded that it can't be moved to the opposite side.
Correct, yeah. I did want to make that noted that we will have to have a dumpster enclosure on General Pershing because of the way we're proposing the subdivided property.
So if I remember from looking at the plan, the hotel on the east side does have a dumpster enclosure on the north end in the surface parking lot, which will be for the hotel only because there is a dining hall component to this other parcel. It is required to have its own dumpster on its own parcel. So it does not have frontage along Ward or to the back. It has frontage along General Pershing or Government.
And so, and the reason that we're making this decision over 5.5 feet is basis of it is what?
I can maybe help with that. In that area, we're just dealing with a very narrow road right away. What's pretty standard is 42 or greater, and we're less than 35 feet from our property line to the neighboring property line in that area. So it really constricts our ability to meet that ordinance as it's written. Although we have made efforts to get as close as we can to that 50 feet requirement.
And so, Wade, is that 50 feet is measured from the property across the street's front property line to the front of the dumpster enclosure?
Exactly, from the property line to the dumpster enclosure.
Okay. No way to slide it over 5.25 feet. And I guess by doing so, you lose some of your interior space in your front
Right,
area.
yeah, and we also, I'm glad you brought that up, as a component of this development, we're have a lot of green space requirements and things like that we are intending to meet in our courtyard area. So it's really kind of space is a premium there, and to meet all that. And on it, Shannon brought up stormwater runoff and things like that. I know we're not discussing that in this meeting, but there are a lot of different factors that kind of came into us locating that dumpster. Really where it is.
Okay.
I think you may have said that already, but kind of thick, so you can't, I guess the restaurant area is on the general Pershing side for this lot? Is that the?
It'll front Government Street, but then they'll kind of come through the back of the house and get there. And this, I guess I will note too, I wish we had should have brought some renderings with us, but won't be a traditional standalone dumpster enclosure. It will kind of be continuous, almost look as if it's one building. So it will be, pretty hardy, probably above and beyond, the typical dumpster enclosure requirements.
But again, it can't go on the water side.
Correct, no, because it'll be its own separate parcel on the corner of Government and General Pershing. So that parcel will actually not have any frontage along the water.
But you're also gonna have one on Ward, right?
Correct.
Or a different parcel, but.
Yes, correct.
Same kind of structure.
So that'll be the hotel that's on the board. That'll use that dumpster. This is that mixed use. Yeah. All right, any further discussion? Someone like to make a motion? Anyone?
Yes, least excited about it. Toughest of the four. How would you make it? There's got to be a way to make it.
I'll make it on top.
All right.
Can I speak to one thing about the dumpster?
Sorry. Yeah. And if you'll name
Sure.
it,
Yeah. David Machado with MP Design Group. I want to speak a little bit to some of the architecture and some of the decisions that went into how all this kind of works together and flows. So you got the food hall building and the condominiums on top, that front Government Street, and then immediately to the west, southwest corner of that, you have a mixed-use building that includes retail and condominiums on top of that. So that's the residential mixed-use aspect of this development and a big key to that. Those buildings are connected via a bridge that goes between them and kind of meanders into the courtyard between the parking garage and those buildings up front. As part of code, we have to provide amenable ingress and egress from those buildings to get out of them in cases of emergency. That means of egress into that building on the southwest corner includes a stairwell and an elevator shaft that really have to go in that location. The only real estate left to put the dumpster enclosure is immediately to the west of that. The developers really went to a great extent to make that, because that's a big part of the development for them as well. I mean, obviously, they, just like the residents don't want something unsightly or, odor. I mean, you're talking about high-end residential condominium units there that they're trying to market and sell, along with tenants that are going to be utilizing the retail right there as well as the food hall. So all of this is working together within this development as well as around it. The hardship that we're having is the narrowness of the right-of-way on General Pershing. If it wasn't for that, we'd be easy at 50 feet. but we're bringing up, things that, of course, they're in engineering reviews, such as stormwater attenuation and things like that. That courtyard is really our only opportunity to accomplish some of those things that is going to attenuate some of that storm drain. Plus, we've got the life safety issue of getting people out of that building in two different ways, and that immediate part of the building. And then you've got this little piece left, where we've got to, be able to do the dumpster. It is all one building, and this dumpster enclosure is really like none I don't think you've probably ever seen here. This is more in a larger scale city and development that you would see this type of building and finish and architecture and things. And I can assure you, for the success of their development and everything around it, I think it's going to be, a lot nicer than what everybody's thinking. And certainly I understand there's a food hall but they're going to be running these things quite a bit, and there's management that's going to manage the property full time. So I feel like I certainly understand the concerns. It's a rightful concern. I just think when you dive into all the issues and the hardship of the right of way, this is really the only reason why we're up here asking for it. Otherwise, we figure out how to get it back out of there. But it's, I just want to make sure that that's all being considered.
Thank you. And the argument on the right-of-way is from center line of the road, if we're at 35 feet wide right-of-way, you're 17 and a half each way. If this was the city standard 50 foot, that property line is shifted further away, so then that property is therefore further away from this dumpster enclosure. All right, thank you. Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to allow the dumpster enclosure to be 44.75 feet from the nearest residential property. Due to the not enough right of way and road frontage footage to allow 50 feet.
All right, a motion to approve to allow the dumpster enclosure to be 44.75. Do I have a second?
Yeah, second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of aye? Nay? Nay. All right. Motion passes. So that will be on the Board of Aldermen agenda for next Tuesday, and they will have that. Do they need to let you know, Amanda, if they need to pull that off the consent agenda, if they want to speak to that? How does that work? If they would like to show back up to the Board of Aldermen.
Did we do number 4?
No, number 3. I'm just.
Okay.
So the majority of the people here were opposed to number 3, which is the dumpster enclosure. It was approved. So if they want to come, aldermen, do they need to let you know so that they pull it off consent? Or okay.
The alderman or mayor can pull it off.
Okay. So get in touch with your alderman, the mayor, and
Tuesday.
Pull that off and give you a chance to speak at that meeting. All right, so number 4, allow the drive aisles within the parking garage to be 22 feet wide. Have a motion or any further discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve the 22-foot wide parking garage drive aisle based on Walker Consultant from Nashville's recommendation.
All right, I have a motion to approve to allow the drive aisles within the parking garage to be 22 feet wide. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
No opposed. Motion passes. All right. So next item on the agenda is audience requests. And we'll let people just come in. I imagine you're not here to talk to us about anything, but would anyone like to come up and talk to this board about anything? Okay. All right, next item is to adjourn the meeting. Motion to adjourn. Albert, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and second. All those in favor? Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Okay.